Hello, everybody. We are back. It's a brand new season and a brand new Southampton Way podcast episode. This is episode 16. I'd like to say it's a whole brand new Southampton, and we've turned a new leaf. We thought we did after Friday night, but possibly not. Loads and loads and loads to talk about on this episode. So I'm glad to say I've got two very, very knowledgeable people to talk about it with. I have got with me Rob Maddox and Martin Sanders. So, chaps, thank you very, very, very much for joining me for this one. It's a pleasure to have you guys as always, and to look forward to this new season with you guys. It's a pleasure as well. So, the season started, so we are a little bit late, but it started last Friday when we travelled to Hillsborough. Rob, you were there. So I will start with you and then I'll come to you shortly, Martin. Rob, first of all, Wednesday on a Friday, how did you see that sort of overall performance-wise? Did it live up to what you was expecting from what you saw in pre-season?
Well, I think, we went there knowing that we should really be beating Sheffield Wednesday, right? That's just first and foremost. By how many goals? Now that in hindsight, it doesn't really matter. 3 points was all that mattered that day. Just to kind of kickstart a fresh era, a fresh start. In pre-season, I think I can safely say that we've all been quite impressed with the core squad that we knew that probably would be playing the majority of these games. And it was good to see that core squad and players who played well in pre-season rewarded with a start. Talking mainly there, Will Smallbone, I thought he was absolutely exceptional. Personally, my man of the match on Friday, and it's really nice to see him finally come of age in the Southampton squad, because he's one of our own. We're going to talk about James Ward-Prowse a lot at this podcast, but Will Smallbone's a player who's been here since he was young, very young. Similar age, I think about 7 years old, and he's still here, which is really good. I think overall, we bought George really complain. I can't really complain.
Right, so we have lost Rob for a sec there, but Martin, I'll come to you while we wait for Rob to come back. He mentioned pre-season there, and he said that the majority of us were probably quite pleased with what we saw. We started with a tough game with Benfica, and then we had a couple of sort of winnable games. Didn't we? We went to Turkey and didn't quite get what we wanted out of that. But I think a bit of warm weather training doesn't do anyone any harm. What did you make of pre-season? One win against Reading. I know that arguably, Bournemouth, you could say Premier League opposition, and even you could say, the semi-finalists in the Dutch guys that we played. But what did you make of it overall? Were you pleased with the progress that you'd seen, considering last season ended with Ruben Sellers' ball? Were you quite happy with the way the team had progressed?
I thought it was a real mixed bag of results, but I did try and watch as many of the games as I possibly could on like the live streams. Even watched the Benfica game at St George's Park because you were able to see it. I think some of the young players really impressed. I think the standout for me was how quick Russell Martin has got across his style of play and the change so quickly. I think he's done a phenomenal job in a really short period of time with those players. And obviously he's got a bloated squad of players. We've not had loads and loads go out the door, other than the people that had contracts that were expiring. Obviously, Walcott, Moy, Willie Caballero went, and obviously Ashley Maitland-Niles went. I think he's done a really good job of what he had there. Obviously, it must be really difficult to do training with that amount of players. But yeah, I think some of the young players really, really impressed over pre-season. Sam. I thought Sam Ameo, can't pronounce his name very well, but I thought from what I've seen of him, he looked absolutely outstanding. Looks a real talent, doesn't he?
Yeah. And sorry, Rob, I was just chatting to Martin about pre-season because you mentioned that quite a lot of us would have been pleased with how it went. I was one of those. Quite happy how he didn't manage to sort of give us a structure within the time he had. Considering the likes of Jones and couldn't do that in the time that they had, which is a very similar time period if you look at it. He also mentioned Sam Amior.
Yeah. It's called him Amo.
I caught up with you after the Bournemouth game and said that I thought that he is just brilliant. Is he? And we were chatting before, saying that he should be getting minutes. Were you disappointed not to see him against Wednesday on Friday?
Yeah, so I think with Sam, it's a difficult one because I don't think anyone, not even the club, probably were expecting him to step up as much as he has done already. Obviously over pre-season, because I'm sure he's a year off development of Ballard and Cammy. That those two boys who are really coming through. So I think this season for him the plan would have been for him to be that main guy in the under 21s now, and kind of shine through the PL2 league that's been set up. But I mean, what a surprise, right? I mean, we saw his cameo against Liverpool at the end of last year. It was fantastic. Turning players, put Fabinho and Knotts, looked fantastic. I was quite disappointed. I think in the circumstances, Aribo was probably the better sub to make because he's probably a little bit better at keeping the ball, a little bit more tame, a little bit more experience in that kind of situation. But I think if we were a couple of goals up, maybe we're 2-3-0 up, coming into the 75th, 80th minute, I reckon we will see Amo a lot. And I think over the next couple of weeks, it's all about kind of bleeding him in gently because you don't never want to rush a player who's only just turned 17. But we've seen a lot of minutes of Amo over pre-season. He's been playing central attacking midfield. He's been playing left wing, right wing. I think he's looked fantastic, really exciting. And the fact that we got him and Meghoma, two fantastic players for less than £1 million from Spurs, is just unbelievable business from our directors. So yeah, I can't complain. Over the moon for him, and it's really good to see another exciting young player come through, kind of in our academy.
Yeah. I think it is worth mentioning a couple of things that you picked up on there as well. One being the Joe Aribo sub, the right one to make, but in the way that I do want to sort of we'll go through the squad in a little bit and see sort of who may still be here to make that impact. But also you said about the directors made a good job pulling in Meghoma and Amiel for £1 million from Spurs. I think they capitalised on a wage restructure or something silly like that. But I mean, to jump on that and get it is outstanding. I think not that we should at all forget or brush over what happened last season, but I think we're starting to see as fans, Sport Republic trying to really put the right people in place, and there has been a little bit of an overhaul behind the scenes, mainly being director of football, Jason Wilcox. Obviously, we can't forget we have got a new academy director and a new CEO. There's so much going on, but the main man in the fray at the moment is Jason Wilcox, who has been outstanding in my eyes. Martin, have you seen the difference in the way we've conducted ourselves from last season to this season, from boardroom level? Because it's quite clear with managers that Martin is a vast improvement on what we had last year. But what do you think from what we've seen from Jason Wilcox so far?
I think Jason Wilcox was always going to have a really hard job when he come into the football club because of the relegation to the Championship and the quality of player. Our top players were always going to be sought after. We're going to obviously talk about Ward-Prowse in a bit, but we're still, though we got relegated, I still feel, don't dwell on it too much, but I still felt we had more than enough to stay up really last season. We still got some good quality players. Obviously, we're starting to lose those now. And he's always going to be under pressure because we're going to have bids coming in left, right, and centre for the likes of Lavia, Ward-Prowse, and the strategy has been not to let anybody go. Not getting what they value the players at, and fair play. It's just dragged on a little bit now. That's the only major probably concern, that it will well into the season. I think the transfer window doesn't help closing in September. It's just not ideal at all for anybody, because there's so much upheaval in the middle of August when we got a second game this weekend. There's a lot of upheaval, but I think he's dealt with it really well. His interviews that he's done with Alfie House at the Echo and what's gone out on the official website, I think he comes across really, really well. I think he's a football man and is exactly what we needed. He's exactly what we needed. So fair play to the club for bringing him in.
Yeah, I agree. And anything to add on that, Rob, before we do quickly go back to the Wednesday game?
Yeah, so I think I think Martin's completely right. I think what Jason Wilcox is the best thing that Sport Republic have done since they've come into the club. Obviously, apart from balancing the books and whatnot, but if we're talking personnel, if we're talking signings in general, I think Wilcox has been simply fantastic this window. He's had big clubs absolutely sweating. We're seeing it last night. Chelsea have now come in for Lavia because Liverpool simply just couldn't agree a fee. I mean, we all know the fee. It's been public for ages. 50 million will get you him. And he's really stood tall on his word. Obviously, we spoke a little bit just now about the academy. So they've brought in Andy Goldie, who's our new academy director, taken over from Matt Hale. Matt Hale has done absolutely fantastic work over the last 10 years to bring our academy back to where it needs to be. This crop coming through, who are 16, 17, 18, even some of the under 15s are absolutely fantastic. And that we will see them potentially go to other clubs. But players like Harrison Miles, Alejandro Gomez, as Cammy Doyle, Don Ballard, we're now bringing in Jalen Makoma, Samamo Mayor, and Zach Orr this week as well. Another youngster who's been signed up as a free agent from Arsenal. So Phil Parsons as well. Seems like a very honest guy, not necessarily more of a footballing guy like Semmens, but definitely more business related, which I think is what a club in our financial situation needs. We've got a lot of money now. We've got a war chest once we sell Lavia. It's about time that we nurture that correctly from a business perspective. And Wilcox, just let him handle the football stuff, because so far it's been absolutely excellent. And I'm sure that now that Ward-Prowse has gone and looks like Lavia is going as well, we will start to see those signings that we have planned brought in. Hopefully, one before Norwich, but we'll see. But I completely agree with Martin. I think he's been fantastic, and the hierarchy itself, the new hierarchy, has really impressed me when I was reading their interviews, as I'm sure most fans. So obviously, words need to be backed up with actions, but so far, Jason Wilcox has definitely been doing that. So you can't really fault the guy, to be honest.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So back to Friday night. Martin, I assume you were like me and you watched it on the telly. It was very interesting from start to finish for me. There were so many different points to pick up on and not a great deal to complain about, which is rare. It was a shaky start, I think, with Stevens nearly putting us right in it and conceding early doors. But apart from that, I thought it was pretty excellent personally. Rob mentioned Smallbone already. I mean, was he your standout player? I mean, was there anyone else who fit, in your eyes, who fit that system and the way we played on Friday, spot on perfectly?
Yeah, I thought Smallbone was brilliant. The amount of passes that we made were unbelievable. I think the completion, 930 passes that we completed during the game. I think it's quite incredible, really. We had all the possession, like 80% of the possession. It's incredible. I thought we played with a bit more purpose. We moved the ball quicker than we have done before, but we looked fairly organised, which is really impressive. Like you say, Smallbone was good. I think Teller is a must keep. I don't think he can be sold. Yeah. We have to keep him. I think with the players that we're losing, he's one man we have to keep, because he knows the league and he looks comfortable. He looks confident with that early goal. That's obviously come off Adam Armstrong, but I thought he was superb. And Edozie, Edozie's come back into the fold and he looks confident. You would think he might have lost a bit of confidence over the back end of last season not being selected, but credit to Russell Martin, he'd get the best out of him. I think he'd be a really key player this season, Sam Edozie.
Yeah, I agree. I was having this conversation today about our winger situation. I was actually discussing how I would quite like to keep Oda Kamaldeen if possible, to give us that depth on the wings, because I think if we had Edozie, Teller and Kamaldeen, as options on the wings, with Sam Ammo, with the likes of Sam Ammo as well. I think we've got a recipe. We've got an absolute recipe there, and all we've got to do is cook. Another one to watch, I think, and quite interesting is Walker Peters, because I think on Friday he was outstanding in that sort of role he was given. What did you think, Rob? Was that something you guys were noticing more when you were there? Were you like, fucking hell, like this is like Walker Peters is playing well? Because I mean, watching from where we were, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, like, so with Walker Peters is just starting off, him in general. So like last year, I felt like towards the tail end of last year, he didn't really look interested all that much. There were times, I can't remember who we were playing against. There was times where he just get caught out so many times, ball going over his head, not tracking his man. I thought it was quite pathetic, really, compared to where his standards were, a couple of years ago. But when you look at it in pre-season, obviously we're gonna need to talk about Tino, because that was his main competition for that right back spot. I think Walker Peters looks much more comfortable than Tino did in that inverted fullback role. I think he's a little bit more technical. We've always seen it, his dribble completion's always been quite high. So he's able to kind of maneuver himself in those tight areas, which is what an inverted fullback kind of needs to do. And his passing's always been quite good as well. We saw it for the Ward-Prowse the Ward-Prowse assist, where he drifted in and then Walker Peters just found him, cut out 4 men with that one ball. Really, really simple. But he looked fantastic, wasn't he? I think that was, I know we're playing not the best team in the world, should we say? Probably one of the more poorer teams in this competition. But you can only play against what the opposition that you've got. And I thought he looked fantastic. If we can keep hold of him, which now that Tino's gone, I think there's a very high chance that we do. If I'm honest, I don't think a club will come in for him for 20 million, whatever we want for him. But I said the same with Ward-Prowse, so there you go. But no, I think if we can keep hold of him, he will be a cut above. He'll be one of those players that we can kind of build Martin's system around, because he looks so comfortable. If we have Walker Peters on one side, Ryan Manning on the other, that is a fantastic championship duo. And I know James Breeden didn't look fantastic from what I've heard on Tuesday from people who went. But to have him as a backup in the championship, I still think is really solid. So for me, yeah, Walker Peters look amazing. If we can keep hold of him this summer and he's playing to that ability each week and he actually looks committed and he cares, then yeah, absolutely no issues with myself. I thought it was a cut above. Really good.
Yeah. It's a funny one with James Bree. I didn't rate it. I think he played the first half against Bournemouth and I thought he looked poor as well. Just looked to be getting caught out a lot. I can't make my mind up. It's hard because obviously he came in at a very demoralising time, barely played, and now he's being asked to go back to a position he was, almost a year ago, playing for Luton, playing very well. We know what Nathan Jones' sides are like, so he wouldn't have been used to playing in a side that keeps the ball all the time. He would have been used to playing in a side that takes risks and boots the ball over the top. So I don't know. It's a big step up for him. If he really wants to push on and make a stake of claim to get in the first team, he's going to have to pull his socks up, frankly, and really give it some, because he's clearly a player. His stats from last year tell you he's got it in him to be a key player at the level we're at right now. So yeah, and he seems decent enough. His attitude seems decent enough. So Friday night, just to wrap up on it, was there anything that would slightly tweak a concern with you, Martin, about sort of maybe the way we conceded the goal, or any other aspects that might have been like we could get caught out with that this season?
Goals. I just think goals are really important. We're creating a fair bit, but we don't really have that real cutting edge up top, do we? I'm hoping that Adam Armstrong's going to come good. Not sure. We were saying just before we come on the podcast what will happen with Shay Adams. I think a striker, whatever happens, is an absolute must in this transfer window. I believe we have to bring a goal scorer in. I think it's really, really important, because Adam Armstrong done really, really well in the championship last time around. I believe he scored around 28 goals last. Yeah, so it's good going, really good going for Blackburn. But it's whether he can replicate that form again. He's had 2 seasons where he's hardly scored. Can he get confidence quick enough and just get things going? But that would concern me. And obviously, we brought a set piece coach in, which is interesting. Obviously, the goal we conceded wasn't great, was it? We just got bullied. in the box, and that's that. I just think we will sharpen up on that. I don't think we'll maybe concede as many goals as Russell Martin's Swansea side did. I think we will get organised. The defensive coach being brought in is obviously been done for a reason, and we just got to hope that Gavin gets some confidence this season and he can find a bit of form, because he's a good goalkeeper. It's all about form, though, isn't it? And he needs to find it really quick, like obviously our strikers do. So they're the two key areas for me.
Yeah, I didn't think Gavin had the worst game on Friday night.
There's nothing you could
Rob.
do about that goal.
He didn't.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a brilliant finish on the bounce. He did really well to drive it into the corner. Not a lot he could have done with his feet. He was quite comfortable, and he playing it back to him. Do you think that our problem really this season is going to be us? Are we going to be our own problem at times, not scoring or conceding sloppy goals? I mean, are we more worried about us than who we're playing, do you think?
Well, you don't win championship and you don't get promoted based on other people's mistakes. Quite as simple as that. Over a 46 game season, you have to take responsibility. It's as simple as that. I think from a defensive perspective, just kind of touching on what Martin mentioned, I think if we do keep Bella Kotchap, I think he comes in for Bednarek for me. And the only reason why, I think, obviously it depends how he recovers. The reason why he seems a little bit more comfortable with his feet from what we saw last year, and he's so much faster. I thought that was the key thing, because Sheffield Wednesday are not a quick team, but there were times where we were getting caught out. And Stevens, as composed as he is on the ball, probably isn't the quickest man. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more pace maybe in that back four. But I thought, when it comes to Bazunu, let's be real, we're not going to be getting another number one in, right? That's just not. Joe Lumley is not signed as a number one. Alex McCarthy, I would be so happy not to see him play for Saints again. He's a horrendous footballer. Against Bournemouth, I think it was, in the preseason friendly when I went down. I sat right behind the dugout, and McCarthy and Lianco at half time got dug out by Martin. Genuinely, like throughout the entire first half, he's just shouting at them, play the ball with your feet. And that's where Bazunu is so much better than McCarthy. I think that's probably just he's playing City's academy. That's how they would have wanted their keepers to play, like Edison, really good with his feet. So that's a positive, and hopefully with the amount of possession we're keeping, he won't have to face many shots, but we will need him when he does, and that's for sure. Clean sheets are going to be huge. As Martin said, we need goals, but let's give Andreas Georgeson, our new set piece coach, a little bit of time. Obviously, you can't fix set pieces overnight, as we know, because we've had like 5 set piece coaches now. But it will come. I think we'll see the full form of this Saints team under Martin in November. I think that's when we should hit stride. But until then, we just got to keep it tight at the back. Be interested to see how Bella Kotchap comes back from injury and if we can keep him. But Stevens and Bednarek should be perfectly capable of keeping clean sheets in this division. There's no doubt about that. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And it, just while you mentioned being behind the dugout, obviously I was literally in the row in front of you, so I was watching what you were watching. And the thing I found interesting about the way that Russell Martin works is, I don't know if you picked up on it, but they have a monitor. So
Carl Martin's tablet
sat with a monitor. We're watching an angle from the top of, I think, the chapel. It was like an angle from the top corner of the chapel. So he could see the shape. He could see exactly who was doing what when something happened. So not only when a goal went in, but when we conceded a chance, he went from the touch line, almost the byline, turned straight around, shouted at Carl Martin, said, "Get that up. What the fuck just happened?" And he literally in those words, to get that up, what the fuck just happened? And he wanted to know exactly how we ended up conceding that chance. Not even a goal, just that chance. And that was like a breath of fresh air to see a man who cares about detail like that. And the one other thing I picked up on, which will link into the whole captaincy thing, what we talk about in a bit more depth later, is, I don't know if you picked up, every single thing that happened in the first half that went wrong, defensively especially, Russell Martin turned around and shouted at Jack Stevens and communicated with Jack Stevens. The whole game, he was saying, Jack, almost like, when you get on, fucking sort this out. When you get on, fucking sort that out. It was like those two were the only ones from, like, it was like player liaison and manager. Like, Jack Stevens was sat back. Everyone else was having their own little conversations and stuff. And Jack Stevens was sat there almost taking a bollocking for the boys on the pitch. It was like, it's really interesting the dynamic they've got, because he clearly respects Stevens a lot. We've definitely seen that. A little bit more on that later. Let's talk about the players who played on Tuesday night now. I don't want to talk too much about the result because it's fucking grim, frankly.
To be honest with you, mate, we don't need any more games in this league.
Exactly.
In this season. We don't need any more, mate.
Exactly. But 3-1 against Gillingham is nowhere near good enough. No disrespect to Gillingham. They didn't even expect it. I mean, their manager came out in the week saying, if you're expecting us to keep the ball or see the ball, you may as well not show up. That was his exact words. He said, you may as well not show up. He said, I'm going to rest a load of our players to protect them. His exact words. You can go and have a look at his interview.
He said, yeah.
So he was expecting an absolute trouncing. Now, we frankly rolled over and conceded 3 goals from 3 shots. Alex McCarthy in goal, cough, cough. Martin, were you listening to it on the radio? Did you watch it? Did you see anything about it? What was your thoughts overall about the game before we get into individuals?
Well, it's really hard to watch because there's no stream, so it was a case of the radio and Sky Sports News, and I watched it that way. I think there will be a silver lining to come out of that result, was that we'll see certain players that probably won't play for the football club again, or will be nowhere near the squad this weekend. I think he's pretty. I thought his post-match press conference and the interviews he did afterwards, it was refreshing to hear a manager come out and be totally honest. And he was totally honest. And like he said, there'll be a few people that won't be on this journey with us. And it's pretty obvious who those people are. Lianco will definitely be one of those. From what I heard on the radio, he was playing long passes when he shouldn't have done. We know that Russell Martin likes to play out from the back. He didn't obviously play to instructions. So Lianco won't be any part of it. It's pretty obvious that the club don't want him. The fact that he was out in Turkey, obviously the deal collapsed with the club. He's come back. He's not got the same squad number anymore. He won't be in and around this squad, I wouldn't have thought, anymore. And if they can get rid of him, they will do. Like Rob said, I echo everything he said about Alex McCarthy. It doesn't suit Russell's style of play. Don't think he's good enough. I think his attitude's poor. He's not fit to wear the shirt. I don't like his attitude. I've said it on loads of podcasts I've been on. I do not like his attitude. I think he's sluggish and he doesn't set an example. He had the armband in one of the friendlies. I just thought he just annoys me as a goalkeeper. Obviously, and the other one that's really disappointed me that I thought might step up in pre-season. It's hard to judge it because I didn't watch the game, but from the people that went, that we've spoken to, was Sekumara. Don't think he played particularly well neither. I think his attitude was poor, didn't press, didn't work to instructions. And I think it's a problem because he's probably someone that you thought would be a part of this squad, but his attitude's letting him down, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is a shame with Sekou because, on his debut, I think we were all really excited when he came on and sort of had that absolute flash against, I think it was against Leeds, if I remember right. Yeah. It was really early in the season. But yeah, we were really disappointed with hearing how he played. I know he was in a different role. I think he played in midfield, but I mean, like Russell Martin said, if you're gonna make mistakes doing your own thing, that's a problem because you need to make mistakes doing what they've told you to do. If he's giving you a blueprint and you totally ignore it, it's not going to go down well. Yeah, I mean, what did you make of his interviews afterwards, Rob? Because I mean, I don't really, apart from Charlie's finish, there was nothing else to talk about in that game for us. And the young boys, obviously. But what did you make of the interview?
I really enjoyed it. I'm not even lying. I didn't watch the game. I went to the pub, but I was listening to it on the way over in the car and on the way back. Obviously 3-1 to Gillingham's a disgrace, and I'm sure Martin I thought it was really annoying because if we good result Wednesday, win at Gillingham, you got all the momentum going into Saturday, which is Norwich played really well against Hull, so really quite a big game there, which we'll move on to. But I was really happy to hear him dig out players. Because as a manager, I think if you've been at a club for a long time, it's quite easy to protect your players. You have that relationship with them. You have personal relationships with the players. I don't think Martin being here for 5 weeks necessarily has that with all of them. So I think it's important that he does kind of dig them out, set standards, because in a 46-game season, you cannot let standards slip, especially if we're going to go for promotion. And as Martin said, I don't think we'll see some of the players yet this season. Lianco, wouldn't shock me if we never see him again. Now that we've got Zach Orr, genuinely, from what I've read, I'd rather play him. Lianco is just crap. Like he's genuinely just crap. You can't trust him. Mara, you were spot on. I thought he did disappoint in pre-season. Didn't do much against Reading. I know he's playing on the wing, but still against Reading, Ruben Sellers' team, you've got to be doing a little bit more. But no, I was quite pleased to hear him. He's taking it seriously. I spoke to Alfie House about the interviews, and he was saying, yeah, he was, Martin was absolutely fuming. He's very calm, quite composed, but I think with Russell Martin, you can really see that anger. He's a perfectionist, isn't he? As you said, he said, really good quote. As you mentioned, if you're going to make mistakes doing it our way, then that's completely fine. We can work on that, but not when you do your own thing. And just touching back to the Bournemouth friendly, I mean, Josh, you would have seen it. There was one moment in that friendly where Lianco just decided to play a diagonal pass when he could have just passed it out to James Bree, and Russell Martin went absolutely fuming. It lost his head completely. So I was quite pleased to see him dig out some of the players. I think it's really important, especially after last year. Of course you can protect players, but when you put in a result like that, 3-1 against Gillingham, a League Two team, it's just disgusting. So, and I think as I tweeted after the game, I think that game, the only silver lining I can really see from that, apart from Cammy Doyle getting an assist on his debut, is he knows who he can trust and he knows who he can't now. That's his first professional game. He's had plenty of preseason games with the squad. He knows who he can trust and who he can't. And long term, I think this game would do us more good than bad. Because we don't need to. Obviously, Carabao, we want a cup run, but this season's going to be tough enough. And let's be real, our main aim here is promotion. So that's going to be worth a lot more to the club than getting to the quarterfinals of the Carabao. So I think, I think long term that game might actually do us some good, believe it or not. Which is, as I said, really clutching at straws there, but we'll see.
I know what you mean, but when you do look at it in for what it is, I think actually when I looked at it and I listened to what Russell Martin had to say after the game, I was definitely more at ease about how it was going to be dealt with, because that was something.
Do you trust him more? Do you trust him?
Oh mate, it's night and day. It is honestly, it's night and day, and I'm not. It's not like a. Because I really did try to get in, like, to be up for the Nathan Jones thing, and when it happened, I was disappointed, and I had everyone around me and my family and who support other clubs and even support Southampton saying this is an awful decision. I said no, let's give him some time. If he was a manager who'd just come from Spain and we'd not heard of him and he was unproven, we'd be more excited. So give him some time, but I mean, I think it was evident the way he spoke after games just made you feel like this is not getting any better. Even as soon as after Brighton, on New Year's Day, on it, whenever it was, or Boxing Day, whenever we played Brighton, it was like even after that, and it was a poor showing. I think he changed formation about 25 times in the game. It was like I didn't know what I was watching. Even after that, it was like I don't know. What's he going to do to fix it? Because he doesn't even seem sure in himself. But I definitely do feel more sort of secure in having Martin in the dugout.
He knows the league as well, mate. He knows the
league very well. He knows the league.
He knows what he wants. He has a philosophy, and he's implemented that philosophy massively. I mean, like they had 2 weeks of training, and then they played Benfica, and instantly you could see the difference in shape and the inverted fullbacks and whatnot. So I know, I completely agree. It is night and day. Literally, 100%.
100%. It feels like night and day. And I draw parallels, guys, to when we lost to Grimsby, and after Grimsby, and listening to what Sellers said, and it was just copy paste for what he'd said last week, and then it was copy paste again when he did it again. It was like demoralising at that point. I'd even given up and realised I'm just wasting my money. I'm still going to be here, but this is a fucking waste of time. I'm being spat in the face by my own football club because nothing's going to change and we're going down. At that point, you think, oh, this is it. But after that loss, you feel like, oh shit, this is a catalyst for change now. Like he's going to do something about this. I mean, one of those things, Martin, being that he called out certain individuals and refused to even mention others' names. Let's start with the positives. I think positively, he said the young lads. So that would be Cammy Doyle, Meg Homer, Sam Ammo. He said was fantastic, and Jaden Meg-Homer was fantastic. He said, and he even mentioned Diblin, who made his debut. He said Tyler come on and done well as well. Senior players, I don't think there was many to mention that he said was good. He said Joe Aribo and Stuart Armstrong were good. He gave Roman Perot a mention. I think that was just because he's come back from injury. I mean, there were some notable exclusions there. Being, like Rob said, Lianco. One for me was Che Adams. He didn't mention that. Really surprised me, given that he had the armband that night. Let's pick through it a little bit. So with the positives, he did mention that certain players are going to have to make way because he prefers the young players and he needs those young players in the group. Assuming this is he's meaning the guys he played in preseason, Meg Homer, Sam Ammo, especially. Would you be quite satisfied with that? Would you be satisfied as a fan to say, actually, these players we paid 5, 10, up to 15 million for, I'd rather see them go and these young guys in the squad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the young players coming through look really good. Talk about Jaden; he looks a phenomenal player. In that Benfica game, the first game of pre-season, I thought he was one of the standout players in the first half. He looks strong. He looks like he's got a football brain. He gets his head up early doors. He doesn't give the ball away. I think he'd be a really good addition. He'd be in and around the squad, same as Sam Ammo. He'd be in and around the squad. I still believe they need to bring a few faces in, that's for sure, and get the mix right. I don't think we can just expect them to come through and do a job. If they get the mix right and they buy well, this is probably something we want to come on to in a minute. But yeah, I think the best thing to come out the other night, like Rob said, the silver lining is he will know who he can trust and who he can't trust. And those players that he can't trust, it'll make the transfer business that little bit easier because he'll know what they need to go and get now. There might be players they thought that were going to be a part of things that won't be a part of things now. That's the biggest thing to come out of Tuesday night. I think Rob's right. It's probably a blessing in disguise, to be honest, and more good will come out of it in the long run, to be honest.
So.
Yeah, 100%. We've seen certain young players, Rob, over the years come and flourish and then just sort of disappear back into the youth setup. Especially in pre-seasons, we generally had a habit, especially Ralph had a habit of doing this, bringing players in for pre-season, and even if they excelled, it was almost like they were there just to make the numbers up, sort of thing. Namely, people like Diamond Edwards. I know he did get injured, but I thought he was fantastic. I think it was last preseason. I thought he's fantastic, and then he wasn't even in any squads, like cup games or anything. He just wasn't involved. Like I said, I know he did get an injury, so maybe I'm being a bit harsh. But are you more confident in our young lads, sort of the ones that have come through, the likes of Don Ballard and Cammy Doyle and Jaden and all these guys?
I think you got to be just purely based on what we've seen. I mean, you're right. Diamond Edwards is really exciting. He's 18 now, potentially 19. I'm so unlucky to do his ACL, and then he's just going to be out for a year. So I think he's now back. I think in training, which is a huge shame because he looked really exciting. And I saw him play last season, and the B team were doing a friendly just down the road from me in Frome. And I went to go watch, and he was on the pitch. He looked absolutely fantastic. Same with Ballard as well, and Cammy. They all look really good. I think if you look at the B team from last season, you look at your Ballards, your Doyles. Ballard and Doyle, by the way, are going to be like, if we're talking Southampton products, they're going to be the next big ones. I think Doyle probably didn't have the biggest preseason he probably thought he would, but Ballard was also unlucky to get injured, so we haven't really seen that much of him. But those two lads are going to be phenomenal. I think if we were to give Don Ballard a League One loan to like Derby, I think it'd be fantastic for his development, because I don't think he's going to get much game time here. Whereas it looks like Che Adams potentially staying, Adam Armstrong, maybe another striker being brought in. As you said, we've spoken about him so much tonight. Ammo looks fantastic. No more needs to be said on him. He's just quality, oozes it. Really exciting, really direct, pacey. You can't really ask for much more. And as Martin said, McHomer looks fantastic. Player we haven't really spoken about was Juan Larios. He's going to be good competition for McHomer, I think. And like, to be honest with you, I know he was playing centre back, but I don't think Pro suits the system at all. If a bid was to come in from France or wherever for 8 to 10 million, I think we'd happily take that. I think you got to give these youngsters a chance. That's why they were signed. That's why they got these pro contracts. At the end of the day, that is the Southampton way, and that's what we want to kind of bring through. I'd love to see McHomer and Larios kind of fight for that second left back position, because Manning Manning's Mr. Reliable, it seems, from his Swansea career. So I think that's really strong. Look across the pitch, centre back. The academy's always really been lacking over the last couple of years. I mean, Nico Lawrence, who's out on loan at Colchester, had a fantastic showing the other day. He's going to be a really good player, but as we know, centre backs take time to mature. Bringing in Zach Orr seems quite exciting, quite highly sought after. Had offers from elsewhere, but chose to come here. For what reason? I think we're gonna give him first team football this year. Just thinking through the squad, really, yeah. I mean, those are the main ones. As you said, Diamond Edwards. There are a couple really exciting young lads who are probably just a little bit too young for me to mention on the podcast, but there are some really, really good ones coming through. And as I said, Matt Hale has done fantastic work to bring the academy back to where it needs to be as a Cat 1. And we saw that last year with the B team winning the cup. So it'll be really interesting to see the PL2 team. But I'm so happy that these lads have been given a chance, because I've been waiting for them to break through for so long. Like Dom, how long have we been waiting for Dom Ballard to be given a good go? So yeah, it does. And he's, the lad's only like 17, 18. Same with Cammy, who looks fantastic. So Dibbling as well. Completely forgot to mention Dibbling, but he's going to be a serious talent. So maybe a couple of loans for the guys, because when you're pushing promotion, you want to have your best players on the pitch. I don't think they're there yet, but they need the experience. So potentially a loan, I think, would be good for a couple of them. But yeah, it's just good to see, isn't it? It's an easy win. It's an easy win, isn't it, for fans seeing it
is
some
very,
of our own
very
play.
refreshing.
Yeah,
very refreshing. I think while we're on the squad, it's probably worth moving on to the squad. So let's start with the incomings, because there's not been particularly many. So we started with Ryan Manning, which, to be honest, is probably at the end of the season going to look like one of the better signings, especially value-wise in the Championship overall. I think he is a fantastic coup. Obviously knows the system is fitting seamlessly. So to get him for free, fantastic. Sort of under the radar, and then suddenly he was our player, which is great. Shay Charles was afterwards. Obviously the kid from City. Was it 15 million we paid for him? 15 million roughly, or rising to?
I think that's probably the total package, isn't it? Yeah,
total package, right? Joe Lumley, third choice goalkeeper. Lastly, of Borough, I believe.
I think
could
so.
Be Reading. I think it's Borough, right?
Borough, Reading, one of them. Yeah.
Bit of a journeyman from what I've seen. He's played for a fair few clubs, but Joe Lumley on a free, presumably to play third choice. Hopefully second if McCarthy does go, please. And the last one being most recent one, being Zach Orr, from, like you say, on a free, was last at Arsenal. The bigger thing here right now is the outgoings. So, first of all, Martin, the first big one to leave in the week was Tino. It was talked about for a long time. Newcastle were said to have completely walked away because our fees were so far apart. From what we saw, it was they come in with a 23 million bid at first, and we said 40, and they said, "Whoa, in a bit." We can't deal with that because of FFP and all this sort of stuff. I think it rumbled on with the likes of St. Maximin parting for Saudi and all of that money laundering bullshit that they do. So they made room and they paid what is supposedly a total package of 40 million. Who's got the better deal out of this, Martin? Do you think Newcastle or Saints? Which one has come away with the better deal?
I think Saints walk out of it really well. He was one player I probably didn't expect to see go this summer. I thought after the injury and the 18 months that he's had out of the game, I didn't think anyone would take a punt on him at this stage, maybe in the January window, but I didn't expect him to go in the summer window. I was excited to see him with us this season, but I think we've done well to get what we've got from him. I think Rob will probably have the figures on what we walk away with, because obviously there's Chelsea have a chunk of the transfer fee because of the resale value and everything. So we won't walk out of it with the full value. But I think that we've done well out of it. I think he's a good player. He's a promising young player, and you can't blame him wanting to go play Champions League football. As Newcastle are flying high. I think he'd be a good signing for them. But I think if we can invest the money that we bring in, I think we'll do really well. But obviously we're Carl Walker-Peters as a right back anyway. If we keep Walker-Peters, we've got probably without question the best right back in the division. So I think we walk out of it really well. To be fair, I know what Rob thinks.
Yeah, no, I completely echo that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rob. So given the fact that that was the first one where I think clubs sort of, it was almost like a benchmark. It was like, shit, Southampton are not going to budge on this, on their valuations, right? There was a lot about it on radio, especially if you listen to Talk Sport. They had Darren McAntony, the Peterborough owner, on, who was talking about his experiences with Rasmus Ankersen. He dealt with him when he sold him Ivan Toney from Peterborough to Brentford, and it was quite frank and black and white, and said he is the most horrible. Don't ever play a game of poker with him. He is the most horrible, but strong businessman you'll ever come up against. So he said, don't expect Southampton to be lenient on their fees. They will not sell a player just because they've gone down on the cheap. It's not going to happen. That Tino deal proved it. It's sad to see him go, right? It is sad to see him go. Let's talk a little bit about right backs for now, because there has been a little bit going on, right? So first of all, how did you feel about Tino going? Like, it was a bit of a shock, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then potential replacements, because there has been a lot going on in that department fairly recently.
Yes. So, I mean, if we touch on Tino, if you go back to Brighton away, when he was named in the squad, I was like, okay, that's cool. Name him in the squad, that's fine. And I know this won't be like the ultimatum of why a club would come in for Tino, but I do feel like we did put him in the shop window a little bit against Brighton. I think you are just confirming to everyone that he's completely fit and going to be completely healthy coming into the transfer window, which I don't think we really needed to do. I mean, we were already relegated. I think, obviously, I don't want to make accusations, but it almost felt like at the time that it was an easy win, wasn't it, for the club to bring Tino back in. A little bit of feel-good factor following relegation. Kind of didn't help soften the blow, obviously, but it was just a good feel, really, to see Tino back after his long injury. A fan favourite, got a couple of songs about him, etc. Sad to see him go, but I agree. I think Saints carried themselves really well throughout those negotiations. As we said, it was originally reported at 12 mil. Everyone was like, whoa, 12 mil, that's crazy. And obviously that was never going to get accepted. Then it came out the Saints wanted 40. Newcastle said 23. We said 40. They said 30. We said 40. And then we settled total package at 40. But I think 35 of that being up front or something. But then if you break it down, if all the package is done, I believe we stand to get back 23 to 25 mil based on that deal from the calculators that we've seen online, which is, it's not bad for a player who's just come off of an ACL, get 20 million profit for him. It's not bad. Obviously, we know that he, if we stayed up, he's probably worth way more than 40 million because he's a fantastic player. But in our situation, I don't think you can be angry with that. Tino got a good move, obviously, fantastic move for him. Trippier is going to be moving on over the next couple of years, definitely, and he's going to take that number one spot because he's that good. But I think it will be, I think we'll kind of see at the end of the season, we'll see how his knees hold up. I really hope he doesn't get injured, but it does worry me. When a player comes back from an ACL, they're completely different. Look at Smallbone, completely different player to when he came back from his ACL. I've seen it loads of times with players. And also he had damaged ligaments in his other knee. So big risk from Newcastle, in my opinion. Big risk when there's plenty of other players out there who have good potential and probably would have been a little bit cheaper. Big risk for them. But for us, we can't really complain. I wish him well. I hope he does really, really well. Seemed like a good lad. Always worked hard. But at the end of the day, it's business, and I think we got a really good deal from that. And as Martin said, if we can keep Walker Peters, on Friday I didn't even think about Tino after that Walker Peters cameo. Didn't even think about him. So we just go from there, don't we? Really, we move on. As I'm sure we'll come to a similar thing in a minute.
100%. So yeah, I totally agree with all the sentiment and wish Tino well. Like you say, it is a big risk, but 40 million is big money. Well, to minnows like us, to the sports washers up there, not really. But 40 million is a big fee for a 20-year-old who's just come back from a long and serious injury. Like you said, there are prime examples of players who just haven't been the same after these sorts of injuries, and we know that very well with the likes of Joe Rodriguez, who was electric, did his knee, come back, could not reach the heights. And it's horrible. It is a horrible thing, especially at such a young age to go through it. And again, like you said, Will Smallbone would be testament to it. Martin, there has been slight movement on that. It almost looked like we were going to get an instant replacement in Max Aarons from Norwich. It looked like we were going to get him at a cut price deal because he only had a year left. And then it looked like he'd chosen Leeds. And in the end, he didn't choose either. It looks like he's going to Bournemouth. What did you make? I don't know if you kept up with it, but first of all, what did you make of it? And second of all, would you have appreciated a signing like that? Would you still appreciate a signing like that to come in to sort of maybe play that second role behind Kyle Walker-Peters if he stays?
It kind of concerned me a little bit that maybe looking at a right back because you're thinking that one's going to go. They won't have 3 right backs. You wouldn't have thought. So I'm hoping that Walker-Peters doesn't go anywhere at all. But I was thinking that maybe one of them was going to go, and it did concern me a little bit. I've got to be honest. But he's a really good player as well, Max Aarons. He would have been a really good signing. We'd have had 2 really capable fullbacks with him and Ryan Manning. But yeah, it did worry me a little bit, to be honest. But yeah, obviously that's not going to happen now. Whether we look at other right backs remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about Walker-Peters, should we move on to must keeps? There's definitely some must sells in there. Must keeps. You mentioned it before we came on air. One of them is clearly Burnley's, Burnley's finest academy graduate. If you listen to them, Nathan Teller. You mentioned him saying he's a must keep. I agree. Is there anyone else that you would say at this stage, right now, as we sit, is a must keep?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot of talk around Smallbone at the moment. I thought he'd be a dead starter week in, week out for us. But Sheffield United supposedly have made a bid. It's been rejected by the football club. There's a bit of talk that he actually wants to go Smallbone, which I find surprising. I
don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I want him to stay. I think he's a must keep, Smallbone. I think Teller is the golden ticket. I said at the end of last season. He had to come back. He signed a 5-year contract a couple of seasons ago. He's a man that knows the league. We have to keep him. He's electric. I think he'd be superb for us. And the biggest one for me that I really don't want to see go, because obviously we know Ward-Prowse the deal's done. Lavia will go, but Charlie Alcaraz, I think he's really important. He's not settled down yet. He looks a little bit off it at the moment, but he's such a key man for us. I think he could score a lot of goals in this division. So yeah, they're definitely must keeps. I know who I want to see go, but obviously Walker-Peters I want to see stay. I think as deadline day gets closer, I think there no doubt that people will come sniffing around him. It's just whether the club can keep doing what they're doing and remain strong. But I kind of talking about transfer business. I kind of hope that we can nail things down pretty quickly in the next week, because there's a lot of rumblings around while there's games going on. I always thought August was going to be really, really tough, and it's turning out to be that way. Obviously, Tino went, I think it was the eve of the Sheffield Wednesday game. James Ward-Prowse is going to go on the eve of the Norwich game. I think it just kind of overshadows the weekend and the games and the field and the factor with the fans. I think that I just want business to get done pretty soon now. And I think Russell Martin will be very much, he want to settle his squad as quick as he can and get the players that he knows that he's going to have, that are going to buy in and that he's going to have for the remainder of the season.
Absolutely. I think if you ask any manager in the English pyramid, they would be, if there was a petition, I don't even think you'd have one signature on it to say that the window shouldn't shut before the first ball's kicked of the season. I think every single manager in the English pyramid wants that to happen, and it's just bemused as to why it doesn't work like that. Rob, let's go straight for the elephant then. So Tino went. We've got one more confirmed, effectively massive outgoing in Prowse. 20 years serving. I know we don't want to dwell too much because it is actually a painful one. It is painful as much as you can prepare yourself for it. Do you think the deal is fair? I mean, obviously we've compromised on this one. I know we said we're staunch, but we have actually compromised on this one a bit. What's your take?
So the only reason why I think, as I said before the podcast, the way that Wilcox has carried himself throughout this entire transfer window with multiple different deals leads me to believe that I don't think he wouldn't make a deal unless it's on our terms. I just don't think he wouldn't. I don't see a reason why he would, because we don't need money. And when we talk about the club's biggest asset, which is Ward-Prowse, I tweeted it out. He's more than just a player to me personally. He's the link between the fans and the club. When times were good, when times were bad, he was the constant. You know, I think the only reason why the deal was compromised is because we probably, as people said, we got better payment terms. So it's very likely that we got the majority of that 30 million up front, as opposed to maybe that 40 million spread over 3 or maybe even 4 years. So I think if you're talking about immediate impact, I'd much rather have 30 million pounds now which is, by the way, as Ward-Prowse is obviously an academy product, it's pure profit from an FFP standpoint. So we can use all of that money. Whereas, you know, if you spread that round over 3 to 4 years, it gets diluted and you don't really see its impact as such. Just kind of touching on Ward-Prowse, there's been a lot of debate, and let's be real. If you think Ward-Prowse is a club legend, that's fine. You think he's a club legend, that's fine. If you don't think he's a club legend, then that's fine. You know, for me, I'm 22 years old. I've been traveling watching Saints for the last 4 years now, home and away, week in, week out, and he will be a club legend to me because of the memories he's given me. Simple as that. I have never seen a player put in as much effort in my lifetime watching Saints than he has done. Obviously Lambert, fantastic, but from what I remember and from what I'll remember more, it's Ward-Prowse. As I said, he's always kind of been the constant. He's always been here. It doesn't matter who the ownership was. It doesn't matter, you know, who was the captain at the time, the manager. Ward-Prowse was always there, and he fought really hard to get himself into a good place in the team under Ralph. He did really well. Obviously, we all remember he was left out of the squad completely against Huddersfield when we won 3-1, and really forced his way back in for the second half of the season. And since then, he's been a mainstay. Yeah, it will be really painful to see him not wear red and white next year. I honestly, I'm still going over it, because it just doesn't feel real, does it? It just doesn't. It's just going to be so strange, and I don't know. It genuinely is sad, as you said. Like, I'm genuinely sad that he's going. You know, we've seen players like Lambert leave us before to go to Liverpool and whatnot. But the one thing that's kind of been going through my head is, you know, he's going to leave for a relegation threatened side, first and foremost. There's no doubt with the strength of the Premier League. So what we're going to be looking at, if West Ham do well next year, if they sell Paqueta, I don't see them finishing higher than 12th, right? I just don't, with the strength in the league. I think, is it really worth giving up the last 20 years to finish 14th with West Ham and play 4 Europa League games? For me, I just don't understand if he would force a move. I can obviously completely, I can understand the frustration that he's had over the last couple of years, and especially over the last season. The club's changed so much. But if he'd stayed captained and brought us back up, that would have been, in my opinion, undisputed king. Because obviously there's always that thing with Letizia, whereas if we went down, there's never a guarantee that he was going to stay. And I think people who say, oh, Letizia definitely would have stayed if we went down, it's just not how it works sometimes. You know, we can't say for definite. But as long as you know, he's served us so well. As I said, I know I'm rambling here, but it's such a big topic. As I said, we would have been in this situation, and a lot worse. If we would have been down with Gal if Ward-Prowse hadn't stepped up and kept us in this league for a few consecutive seasons, in my opinion. And we would have been in a much worse position than we are now from a financial point of view. And if we went down with Gal, I don't think we would have went back up. So, because we were self-sufficient, and you can't be self-sufficient without Premier League TV money. So I think, yeah, he served us so well. I want to see him do well. And if this is one last push for a Euro 2024 spot, I just don't think it's going to happen for him, regardless of who he's playing for. I just think he's just not got that quality anymore. But he's a fantastic player. He served us so well, and you know, I always look back on him favourably. But yeah, I'm absolutely gutted. I thought he's going to stay, and the way that this deal got dragged out, such a shame. This would have been so much easier to take if it would have been like the week after Fulham, the week after the transfer window opened, and we didn't have to see him in pre-season. Didn't have to see him on Friday as well. One thing I did notice on Friday when I was there is at the end, when the players all came over, Ward-Prowse does his thing where he like stays off to the side a little bit, kind of taking it in like he did against Forest. And Jack Stevens was there in the middle. He was just waving his arms up. So we were singing like one more year, or like James Ward-Prowse, whatever the chant was. He was just waving his arms up louder. And I didn't really click at the time. And I was like, oh shit, on reflection, that's a bit mad. And everyone was kind of like coming over and touching him after the game and stuff. And it's just a shame. I'm genuinely still upset. And it's going to take a while for it to get used to it. But it's so important now that we replace Wright. And as we said, you know, we need a feel-good factor coming into Saturday. Saturday can't be about Ward-Prowse solely. It has to be about 3 points. We have to move on. So thanks, Prowsey. I love you, but we got a game to win on Saturday, and we can't make it sentimental, unfortunately. There's no room for that in this league.
Absolutely. I think you've covered a lot of sentiment there with Prowsey. There's not really too much else I can add on the sentiment side. I will add to the side and come to you, Martin, as well, that you mentioned there, Rob, about why, as a professional, what's the move? Because I've mentioned a couple of times that my brother-in-law is a West Ham fan and we work together. I see him every day. We talk football all day, every day. And you know, he'd asked me about Ward-Prowse and is it likely, you know, what's going to happen? Could he potentially play for us? And my answer from last season was still the same as it was 3 days ago before all of this kicked off, was it depends solely on what his motive is. If he's 28, right? Coming on 29. He's not a young footballer anymore. I would have thought a man of Prowsey's intelligence, because there is no doubt he is a very, very smart individual in many aspects. He's a smart individual. You'd like to think that you'd think about it in quite a logical way, in that he's 28 years old. He's the captain of this football club, and everything goes through this man. Everything. He's like he is everything to the club, and there's no secret in that, right? He is everything to this football club. So, if you're Ward-Prowse, you get a call from your agent saying, "Look, West Ham want you. They're playing Europa League next season. They're going to offer you 10 grand more a week." Because I can tell you now, it's not going to be a lot more than what he's on now. Because Sullivan and his wages are tight as a fucking drum. So he ain't going to be on a lot more than he is now. He might have a bit of a chunkier performance-related bonus in there somewhere. Obviously, I'm no agent. I ain't got a clue. But his weekly base wage will not be a lot different. Now, if you're Prowsey, you've got a decision to make clearly. Do you stay here for a year and say, right, if we're not promoted in the year, then I'm going to look elsewhere? Because, you know, if you're going to stay, if Saints are going to stay stuck in this circuit, that's not how I want to finish my career. And everyone, I think, would have. I think if anyone moaned, they deserve a slap on the chops. Right now, I do think there is some, not value, but there's something in what some people are upset about, and I can sympathise with certain people who are upset, because if you're Ward-Prowse and you get that offer, what is your motive? It's not money, because they're not going to offer you a lot more than what you're on now. You're a highest earner. Facts. It's not game time, because they've lost Rice. They're likely to sign another midfielder or two yet before this window closes in Prowsey's position. I guarantee you, before the window shuts, they'll have another couple in for rotation, because they value Declan Rice that highly. I know they've just signed Edson Alvarez, but he's not the direct replacement. They need 2 or 3 players to do that. And Sullivan was quite open with that the day after they won their European trophy last season. The morning after, he said, Declan wants to leave. He will go. We'll get 3 or 4 in to replace him, because he is, as a one individual, he's irreplaceable. I can get on board with that. So it's not game time, because he's going to get much more here. Facts. Euro 24, that's the big one for me. If he, bless his heart, thinks he's going to get into that squad, and you've got Gareth Southgate as soon as last week on TalkSport saying it doesn't matter if Henderson's playing in Saudi, I'll still give him a shout. If you think you're going to get in with a manager with a mindset like that, bless your heart. I love that you're still that naive, but you're not getting in, mate. No matter how good you are. Prowsey last season, I put out this tweet. Prowsey last season, not getting in that World Cup team, doing the numbers he was doing in a frankly pathetic footballing side, when you had stars like Mason Mount who couldn't perform with fucking superstars around them, is
20
embarrassing.
goals and assists, mate. Unbelievable.
Mate, it's embarrassing, the fact that he didn't even get a look in. Conor Gallagher and Calvin Phillips got in over him. That should have been a wake-up call in itself. He should have thought, shit. But then again, maybe he's thinking, if I play for a bigger club, then I'm going to get picked. West Ham historically are a bigger club. I'm not going to deny it. They are. They've got the history, right? They've got the fans. They are a bigger club. However, if you look at in terms of next season, are West Ham going to start next season in a dissimilar position to us? They are not going to win the Europa League. Mark it. Clip it. They're not going to win the Europa League.
I don't think they get out of the groups, mate.
It's the strongest Europa League there has been in years. There's so many giants in there that will have failed to perform last season. They are going to struggle, right? So there's no European football for them next season because they won't get in the top 6. They're not going to get in the top 8. They're not going to get in the top half. I'll be surprised if David Moyes lasts till Christmas. And if he lasts beyond that, God fucking help them, because they will get relegated.
Ward-Prowse is, as we've seen multiple times, their new director of football, Tim Steiden or something, he doesn't want McTominay, he doesn't want Ward-Prowse, and eventually when they do set Moyes,
he's a Moyes signing. Prowse's a Moyes signing. Yeah, Steiden doesn't want him, and if Moyes gets the boot, where does that leave Prowse? That's the problem. That's what you've got to be thinking ahead. Is Ward-Prowse going to start next season in a similar or worse position than us? If West Ham go down, right, I don't think they will, because I do think there's going to be 3 teams worse than them, at least.
Yeah.
There has been some pretty poor spenders in the Premier League this year so far, I think, and barring a surprise, they're not going to go down. They're going to struggle. Is Prowse going to start next season as a bit part player in a Premier League team, opposed to the captain and the starter in a Premier League team? That's what this decision should be.
Literally give it 2 years, and I guarantee West Ham fans will get bored of him. As soon as he turns 30, English midfielder, 30 years old, mate, everyone will be like, "Oh, we need some like fresh young blood in our midfield to get legs going." But
it's always the same.
Agree. Yeah, I agree.
It's always the same. Martin, I know I've just rambled on and ranted there a little bit. Have you got, just listening to that, have you got anything that you wanted to pick up on about the whole Prowse saga? Because it's dragged on so long, and everyone's got so much to say.
I'm gutted to see him go. I echo everything Rob said, really, and what you've said as well, to be fair, Josh. I think he's been a wonderful servant to the football club. I find it a strange move. I only thought he would go to one of the bigger clubs. I know they didn't come knocking, but I thought if he went anywhere, it would probably be Spurs. I just couldn't see him going to West Ham. I was watching Soccer Saturday last weekend with Simon Thomas and the guys, and Paul Merson spoke. He doesn't often speak that well about Saints, but he spoke about Ward-Prowse at length, and he said he kind of felt that by staying with us, we could have. Obviously, he was the main man. He was our captain. He could help drive us to a title push. We'd be winning most weeks. The club would have probably paid him the same money. I think
he was one of the players who didn't take a wage cut.
Yeah, so he could have earned that same money. So I find it a strange move. I don't think it's a great move for him at all. I think you find it difficult there. I think to go in and their club legend's gone in Declan Rice to Arsenal. He goes in, though he's not a direct replacement for Declan Rice. A lot of he will be compared to him. I don't care what anyone says. He will be compared to him, and I just don't think he stacks up to Declan Rice as a player. He's a totally different player to Declan Rice, and I think if he doesn't start well, the fans there it's not like down here. We've got a really nice bunch of fans that we back our players, and I don't think it's quite like that in London. I just find it a weird move to go and play in that stadium every week. Like, obviously, he's probably not going to move home, but he's still got a bit of a drive into London every day to training. I just find it a strange move. I think he could have stayed here and been an absolute. He's a legend anyway. He's been an unbelievable servant to this football club. But to have kept him would have given us a massive boost. And I think it kind of does put a bit of a damper on the weekend. I'm gutted he's gone. I wanted him to stay. I'm just really surprised he's gone to West Ham. And there's a lot of discontent there. I speak to West Ham fans. They hate the way that David Moyes plays. A West Ham fan tweeted me yesterday. He said he hates what Moyes is doing, and I think he wants to be defensive. And I just don't think it's a great move for him. I still believe he'll finish his career at Southampton. I think he eventually, for some reason, I just see him back here one day. I don't know why, but I feel that he'll find his way back here one day.
I think it will really hurt seeing Ward-Prowse break the Premier League record in a West Ham shirt.
Yeah,
I think that will really sting. Yeah, but it just sucks. Like, I was confident that he was going to stay because the price tags we were putting up were just way above market average for him. And obviously the payment terms are big, but I think that would have been such a big PR win for Wilcox and Rasmus to keep Ward-Prowse. That would have been just such an easy, well, not easy, but that would have been absolutely massive to keep him. And we know, I'm sure 90% of us expected him to leave, and of course I did expect him to leave, but even when it happens, it is just such a shame. But as the window dragged on, you get more and more hope. You see him against Wednesday, you see him play consistent minutes in pre-season, you see West Ham come and go, multiple bids priced out, and then they leave, and then within 2 days we get a David Ornstein agreed fee. And it's the way it's all worked. And West Ham briefing journalists constantly about the situation, because obviously apparently Scott, I think it's Caber, whatever his name is, apparently he's in really tight with the Darmish, he's in really tight with Sullivan and that. So it just we're just gonna see how it goes. Absolutely gutted, mate. But I don't want to see his interview with West Ham, and I know we're gonna probably I think it'd be really good if the club just sat him down in front of a camera and like Ori and just let him speak for 5-10 minutes, and then that's it. Then that's door closed. No coming out at half time. If it's done by then, no coming out at half time, just fresh chapter, 3 points, just go sort it out.
Yeah,
I'm not on board with the sentiment show with the whole Norwich thing. As soon as I heard that Southampton want it first was reported that Southampton want Ward-Prowse to play against Norwich and then leave. First of all, I thought that's extremely disrespectful to the club who's just paid for him. Because if we'd paid for a player and then the club say we're going to keep him for 1 game, how fucking dare you? That's our player. Do you know, I would think that's outrageous. It doesn't matter how long they've served for that club. I'd think that's outrageous. And then second of all, I thought, and then it'd say, but Ward-Prowse wants a chance to say bye to the Saints fans. And I thought, you don't do that by making it the Ward-Prowse show and playing your last game. And you don't do that. You've played your last game.
He did that at Liverpool. It's done. He did that at Liverpool,
exactly. If it's done, mate. Leave. It's time to go. And I think this is a big chance for... This is a catalyst for galvanization within our fan group, because it could go one way or the other. And I think do not let, as a group of fans, we cannot let our heads drop. I think this is one of those situations where we have to realize that we don't support James Ward-Prowse, we support Southampton. And at the end of the day, we supported him before Prowse, we will support him after Prowse. And that is that. You know, I expect the Norwich atmosphere to be outstanding. I don't expect any less.
Sheffield first home game of the phenomenal, season. Mate.
First home game of the season, record season ticket sales. Despite the whole Prowsey bombshell, I hand on my heart think Norwich is going to be a fantastic atmosphere, as it should be. And despite all of this Ward-Prowse stuff, I think let's try and move on from Prowsey as much as we can before we probably talk about his comments he made in his first media interview next week when he's come out and said, I couldn't wait to get this done. And then we're all upset. So let's move on and come back to that another time. At the minute, it's rumbling on, Martin, with Romeo Lavia and Liverpool and now Chelsea. Just read, literally as we're on the pod, Liverpool...
There's some interesting developments, isn't there?
Liverpool are willing to pay a club record fee for Moises Caicedo, as we've been talking. So this is a big game of chess we're watching in front of us, right? This is a classic sort of who blinks first type thing between Liverpool and Chelsea. Frankly, if one of them doesn't get him, he'll go to the other one, because he's a backup to somebody, and somebody's got, either one of those has enough money to trigger it. So he's going to one of them. How have you felt about it? Because it almost feels like this one's been going on longer than the Prowsey one.
Well, this has probably been dragging on since January, to be fair. It all started when Chelsea supposedly bid in January for him. That's what they said.
It was, August,
Yeah, so it was August. It was at the start of last season, wasn't it?
Scary.
And it's rumbled on for so long. He's such a good player, isn't he? I wonder how much, I don't know what you two think, that Man City, what sort of say-so they have in this. I don't know if they're involved in what happens. There's a lot of talk that they wanted him back next season. Start of not this season, but next season. It'd be interesting to see how it unravels. Man United are also interested. He's a fantastic player. He's been on record and said it a few times that he's the best 19-year-old midfielder I've ever seen at Southampton. I think he's phenomenal. He's brilliant. He's got everything that requires to play at the top level. It's just a case of what happens and how that unravels now. Obviously, they're going to get big money for him. We're going to get big money for him, whatever happens. But I'll be interested to see what you two think about the Man City thing, how involved they are within this transfer.
I guess I'll start. I think any deal with City involved when there's a buyback and a sell-on clause, I think there will definitely be a first refusal, which is where, let's say Chelsea bid 50 mil and we accept it, then we then have to go to City and go, well, they bid 50 mil, would you match it? And if they say yeah, then we have to sell the player to City. It's quite simple. Whether those discussions have already taken place, who knows? It hasn't been reported anywhere. But I would assume that there would be a first refusal just for the amount of clauses that they keep in these contracts. I think if you look at Rodri, who's currently going to be taking Lavia's spot at City, he's like 27, one of the best in the world. Don't see him slowing down anytime soon. A player like him, he'll be playing into his mid to late 30s at the top level. In my opinion, anyway, I think he's just fantastic if he stays injury free. Probably early to mid 30s, should I say? But yeah, City. I mean, it's an interesting one. I think Lavia will probably want to prove himself at City if the opportunity came about. I'm sure he's highly rated there. Pep has spoken about him already before he even moved to us. I think he was named in a couple of squads potentially, but I think with Lavia, I think it's rambled on a little bit too long now. I think we can get the 50. I think we can, and we should hold out for it because you can't show any weakness in this market, especially with the philosophy that we've gone into it with. You can't show a crack. We settled the Ward-Prowse situation based because the payment terms suited us. So it's as simple as that. Not because West Ham, not because anything suited them, because it suited us. Same with Tino, and I think we'll see the same here. I think as soon as that 50 mil bid goes in from either of them, he'll go straight there. But the Caicedo stuff is interesting because he's double the price. So if Liverpool is saying, oh, we don't value the player at 50 million, I don't know what scouts they have at Liverpool, but that is stupid. 50 million quid for a 19-year-old who's just shown up in the Premier League and made it and just bitched about Premier League midfields, just solely based on his compilation at Arsenal away when we drew 3-3. It's ridiculous the fact that they're not paying 50 mil. That's a steal. In 2 years' time, you'll have him quoted at like 100 million pounds. If we stayed up, we would have been asking for 70, 80, in my opinion, and I think that still would have been a fair deal based on what they're asking for Caicedo. So I hope it's wrapped up soon because, a lot, 20% of that will go to City allegedly. So if we sell for 50, we'll get 32 million pound back, something like that, 36 around there. And I hope we can just get that money and just reinvest it straight back into the squad. Obviously, we won't be able to spend all of it, but we can keep a lot of that aside for when we go up next year for the war chest. So, yeah, wish him well. I don't really care where he ends up, whether it's Liverpool or Chelsea. I just want the money now, to be honest with you. And we can hold out for it. But yeah, he'll be a top talent. And if they don't value him at 50 million, then their scouts should just get sacked. That is an absolute joke. What a player.
Jamie Carragher summed it up, didn't he, the other day? If they don't think he's worth 50 million, they should walk away from it.
Yeah, simple as that. They've left it too long. We're not going to compromise. Why would we? Worst comes to worst, we keep one of the best midfielders in the Premier League last year in a Championship squad. Okay, sure. And then we sell him to City for 40. It's all right.
I've actually never seen Liverpool fans make more sense than they have in the whole Lavia thing.
Yeah.
But, they're usually full of absolute bollocks, but they've been talking the truth with the whole FSG. Like, why are you stalling it? What's the point? Pay them the money. You have the odd knobhead saying, "Oh, he's only worth 15 million." But these people don't watch fucking football. Romeo Lavia, right? To put it into perspective, in 2030, Lavia will be 26. He'll be in his prime. We can't even comprehend the year 2030 yet. We're in 2023, for fuck's sake. Like, he is so young. Like, it just puts into perspective how talented this guy is for his age. Like, it's absurd how good he is for his age. 50 million in today's footballing economy is a steal, frankly. Like, for the ceiling this kid has got. I said it last season so many times. He will go as high as he wants to go. If he puts it in, he can go as high as he wants because he is that good. I think the City thing is quite interesting, Martin, in that they have got options in that sort of six that Lavia tends to play, but those options have proven to be not good enough or not available enough, in that Calvin Phillips has not done it. I can see if he has another season that's injury ridden, that they would need to get him off the books, because he's reportedly paid quite well. And that would have tied in with the release clause coming in. I think with the whole first refusal thing, Rob, I think you're right. I think it was the same sort of deal, if I am correct, as we had with the Chelsea release clause with Tino in the first years before it was triggered. It was that we have to give them first refusal. I think that's part of it. Also, they've got the 20% full stop, and they've even got the 20% as if they were to buy him back for the release clause, they get the 20% off as well, which is interesting. Yeah. I read in the Athletic, which is quite reliable. So I think it's interesting. I also think it's very interesting that they are choosing to bolster their midfield, City, right now in the way that they're doing. I mean, they've just offered 110 million for Lucas Paqueta, and they've obviously bought in already a centre mid, more of an 8, but they bought in Kovacic from Chelsea. So they have got options in the midfield. They are going to have to lose a few bodies, but it wouldn't have surprised me if in that, needed to keep that squad depth, they would have just come in for Lavia next season. So
he's going to end up at a rival, isn't he? He's going to end up at a rival.
Exactly. He's going to end up playing against them.
Yeah. You got Liverpool, Chelsea this Sunday. So
yeah, there you go. Lavia derby. The Lavia Caicedo derby. Could you imagine? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, yeah. I mean, if Caicedo's 100 million, Lavia's fucking 85, 90 million. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I agree. Just get the money ASAP, please, because it's this one's a lot easier to take. He's only been here a year. It's fine.
I honestly,
we have business that needs to be done.
Yeah, we all knew. Let's be real. Straight after the Chelsea at home game, we all knew he wasn't going to be here more than a year, didn't we? You know, it's like he's been on loan, and we're just cashing in. So
yeah, we're just keeping him warm for a bit. That's the way I felt like it did feel like that. I can't lie, it really did.
Yeah.
Moving on to the first home game of the season quickly, Norwich. I don't really know what to expect from them. They're a bit of a strange side, Norwich. Martin, did you catch up on the highlights of the first day of the season? Are you sort of playing Norwich on Saturday? What are you expecting from them personally?
Angus Gunn returns to St Mary's. Be interesting to see the reception that he gets.
Oh mate, I forgot about that. Blimey.
Yeah, Angus returns. I think it'd be an interesting game. From what I spoke to I know a few people in Norwich. Apparently, they played well against Hull the weekend. I think they played well. It was a late winner, wasn't it? I believe, but they dominated the game apparently, and you know they played some good football. Interesting. It's that second season down. You obviously wonder if there'd be a bit of disappointment where they didn't make the playoffs or been in that race for promotion last season, because I think if you go down, that's what you want to do. They're usually right in the mix, aren't they, to go straight back up? You know, they've yo-yoed for so many seasons. I think it'd be a really good test for us. I think it'd be a far more difficult game than obviously the Sheffield Wednesday game. We're going to go from playing one of the far weaker sides to one of the stronger sides. I just hope there's a really good atmosphere at St Mary's. I think it's been a nightmare at St Mary's for a while. Our home form was just abysmal. Those two league wins all season last season. I want to see us get off to a good start. I think a win's really, really important. I don't want to see us get beaten, that's for sure. But I just think a win for the fans would just lift everybody, especially with the transfer business this week with Ward Prowse leaving. Hopefully Flynn Downs or somebody may come in. Whether they're going to be ready for the weekend is probably unlikely. But I just think that we have to get our home form bang on this year. We can't afford home form like we had last year. I think it's got to be addressed, and if we could start well, it gives us a platform to build on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rob, from what I've seen, they're quite a physical side. Norwich, especially this season. Yeah. I think they've got the likes of Shane Duffy trying to break people's legs this season. So it's probably going to be quite a battle. What are you expecting? Martin did mention there about possibly getting someone in before Norwich. I've seen a couple of reports saying that we want to, which is obvious. Why wouldn't you want to? But for me, it just doesn't seem realistic. What do you think? Do you think there's potential we could have a body in. Not that they're just going to slip straight into starting 11, but we could have a bit of depth for the game or not.
I think the club have probably known about departures like Will Prowse probably since Friday, Thursday. I think probably would have been preparing for it. Obviously, we've been prepared throughout the entire summer to replace these players. I reckon we have one more. I reckon we have a player come in. I think the club can't afford to not have a player come in. Obviously, as you said, not to start, maybe a part of the squad. Who that is, not sure. But I think we'll probably have someone come in before Saturday, because at the end of the day, the club have just sold our biggest modern day legend over the last decade. And you need to get morale back, as Martin said. We need the atmosphere. What am I expecting from Norwich? I don't know. I don't know. I before this, I looked at their lineup. I've seen a lot of hype from Norwich fans about a player called Gabriel Sara, who's a Brazilian centre attacking midfielder who apparently played really well against Hull. But I was still quite surprised to see Josh Sargent playing for them, to be honest with you. I thought it was rubbish in the Premier League, and he hasn't really looked like he's kicked on. And they've got Ashley Barnes up top, who obviously always scores against us, so Ashley Barnes will score on Saturday. But their defence doesn't look necessarily strong. They bring Shane Duffy, Ben Gibson, no one really there that would worry me. Two very physical centre halves though, and as we saw on Friday, set pieces are still quite fragile. But yeah, I think we have to go there just playing our game. I think we have to get a win. So go there, just please win. Good performance. If we can just, I've been saying it, I've been desperate just to see us rock up for a game, just win 2-0, nice and easy, no issues, control the game. Everyone can go home happy, and then we can build onto what will be a tougher game, in my opinion, against Plymouth. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But regarding the transfers, I think the club needs some positive news, because this week it's going to be, we lost 3-1 to Gillingham. I think we looks like we're going to be selling 3 of our biggest talents this week: in Tino, Lavia, and Will Prowse. So we need a little bit of positivity, and a win on Saturday would really help that. And it'll be great for Russell Martin to get a win as well at home. That'll be really good. And obviously, he's played over 300 times for Norwich as well, so he knows that club, and that'll be potentially quite interesting with their fans. So no, we'll see. I mean, the Northern, we've been given extra allocation for the Northern, which is fantastic. So currently, it's 92% of the Northern of Block 41 and 2 are season ticket holders, which is fantastic, up from just under 80%. So that's really strong. Hopefully an extra 500 fans fill that gap between us and the away fans, but should be a fantastic atmosphere. Hoping that Block 15 stuff does well as well. It'll be good to get some energy into the chapel. It's needed desperately. But no, yeah, really looking forward to it. We could have a first home game, and we need a win. I think the fans need a win. Obviously Friday was fantastic, but home fans need to see a win. Fresh page, no way to do that better than a good win on Saturday, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think in the words of Ryan Manning, winning is a habit, and if we can get into it early doors, that would be great. That would be great. Martin, can I bother you to possibly predict the score? Obviously, Ashley Barnes is going to score, and Angus Gunn's probably going to make about 5 wonder saves, knowing our luck. So, what's your thought on the actual scoreline?
I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory. I think we will concede, but I think we're edge it. I think we'll be the better side. Fancy Adam Armstrong to get a goal. And hopefully, I like to see a Dozy sort of really set fire at St Mary's and get himself on the score sheet, because the fans love him, the kids there love him. 2-1 for me.
Yeah, huge season for a Dozy this one. Rob, what do you think, mate? Score wise, clean sheet.
It's brave words. I'll back a 2-0. I think we should win. Let's be real, we should. Our squad is fantastic. I'd say 2-0. We'll go Teller and Alcaraz. Fancy that. Really fancy that. But I just want to see a good performance. I mean, this league isn't about good performances now. It's about wins. It's about points when you get promoted. Good performances can only take you so far, but you have to capitalize on them, which I think we didn't really do all that much against Wednesday. We definitely should have scored more. So I think, consistency in front of goal, keeping it solid at the back, keeping the ball, 80% possession, and hopefully we can go home happy on Saturday afternoon. Definitely.
Sounds good. I'd be more than happy if it went like that. Just for chuck my 2p in there. I think we'll make it difficult at stages. I think we will come away with a. I'm going to go with a 1-0,
Nice.
slightly narrower. Although I'm hoping it's just 3 points in any way, shape, or possible.
Anyway.
Form. I believe it's next Tuesday. We've got a fans forum. The Solent fans forum. Are either of you chaps going to be heading to that?
Unfortunately, no. I've got work commitments, but hopefully it's good. I mean, to be honest with you, it'll be good. I'm really interested to see how Will Cox handles it, because obviously he's doing a fan forum after the sales of Ward Prowse, so it'll be really interesting to see if we can get any snippets of info from them, and it'll be interesting to see Phil Parsons as well, and obviously Russell Martin. We're just going to get more good stuff from him, but Jason Wilcox will be really interesting. But yeah, shame I'm not going. I was hoping to go, but just not possible, unfortunately.
What about you, Martin? Are you going to try and head down?
I'm going to go.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to go. So if there's anything you want me to ask, just
I'll be there. I'll see you there, mate.
Are you there, mate? We'll catch up.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll grill them. we'll try and grill them. So yeah, there is that to chat about next week, and Plymouth, and hopefully we'll be reflecting on a win. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I know it's a bit of a longer one. I will cut it down into sort of segments, so if you can catch shorter snippets, if you like. Make sure, if you do want to see all of these first, just subscribe to the YouTube, and head over to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're on all of them. You will not struggle to find us. Drop us a follow on Twitter. All of these guys, Rob and Martin, will both be in the description. Make sure you go and follow them. They are all over everything Saints. So
it is an obsession, isn't it? Let's be real.
It is. I think it's in our blood, mate. All of us is in our blood.
Yeah.
So they are all over it. So if you love the club like we do, go and give them a follow. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will catch up with you next week.